Hello? How are y'all? Good. Are y'all ready to get going? Today I'm gonna finish up the book of Genesis, so this hasn't taken long. At this pace, 66 books will be sometime in like 2020 getting done, right? We're talking about the story of us, and we're talking about the story of us from the book of Genesis, and today I want to finish up with a really familiar story, and we've talked about this. I've done series on this. You've probably heard this since you were a kid, but hopefully today we can flip it, okay? Hopefully today we can spin it a little bit. So maybe you've heard this, but I would probably think you haven't heard this, okay? Here's the way it's going to work, so it'll take the edge off. I'm going to tell you the story, and I'm not going to read it to you because it's, well, not entertaining for me to read to you. Plus, then we can put our own words to it because I like that. I like my translation much better. Not that anybody messed up, but just, mine's better. And then we're going to talk about how this story is our story. And then hopefully I'm going to leave you with something to go home with that will impact your life forever. How's that? I mean, I know it's a lofty goal, but hey, man, we don't have goals. We aren't going anywhere. Learn that in rehab. No. So here's the way the story breaks down. Remember last time we were talking about Jacob, and who's Jacob? Swindler, trickster, right? But he got a new name. What's his new name? Israel. Jacob's name was changed from what he had been and what his life had been to now he is Israel, one who wrestles with God. And the whole idea of this person getting the name of God and becoming the nation of God, and we talked about how we don't have to be who people think we are and how our lives have been defined. But this guy, Jacob, Israel, has 11 sons, okay, at this time. Now, these sons go from the oldest, of course, 11 sons, so they're spread out. And I've got kids that are spread out, like my kids are 9 years apart, so I understand the difference between these older kids and the younger ones. And Justice said she's not going to be in here today, so we'll say, we always like the youngest one the best. Don't tell her I said that. She'll freak out. Because they still, 9 years apart, and they're still in the total competition. No, here's the way it did break down, though. Israel's favorite son was Jacob, and he loved Joseph, and he loved Joseph so much that he gave him this peacock-colored coat. It was a coat, it was a covering, a garment of many colors. It was like a robe, and it was, he was decked out when he was sporting it, man. And all of these colors, you got to think, man, we're still talking about prehistoric man. So it ain't like he ran down to a fabric store and threw a rag over him. Man, this thing had to take time to make the colors, imagine everybody just wore brown. That's kind of the way I picture things. It's like, that's a nice shade of brown you got. He's like, yeah, man, I like your brown too. How'd you get that? Well, I wore it out in the sun a while. That's why. But he had a coat that was colored. That was many colors. And this had to take time. And so what this does, if you ever had children or if you were one, some of you were, you have these rivalries that kids go through, for parents' attention or for people's attention or whatever. And so they already knew that this was Dad's favorite, so there's already a problem here, right? And then Dad gives him a coat. And I'm sure this kid was sporting this coat everywhere, man. It's like, oh, I'm going to see the brothers in a minute. Let me put my coat on. Because that's what kids do, right? They rub it in. And so he puts this coat on, and he wears it around. And so his brothers just hate him. I mean, hate. They're like, man, that Joseph, I'm gonna, brothers. And so they all go out and work their fields and stuff. Well, while they're gone, Joseph has this dream. And in this dream, there were these sheaves, and they were, like, I guess wheat or whatever, and they put them in the field, and it's like, okay, there was one for each of the brothers, and all of a sudden, man, his came out, and the rest of them bowed down to his. And then he had this other dream, and this other dream was about the sun and the moon and the stars, and all the sun and the moon and the stars came and bowed down to his star. Now, it didn't take these guys long to figure out that what he was saying is that he is going to be lifted up and his brothers are going to bow down and serve him. And when he tells his brothers this is the thing about having those kind of dreams. Don't tell people. Especially wearing your coat of many colors. They don't take it that well. They hated him. And he even tells his father that, hey, I had this dream that the sun, the moon, and the stars, and of course the sun, the father, and the moon, the mother, and the stars, the children, would all bow down and serve him. Now the father didn't like that either. This caused a sore spot in the family. So it would have served Joseph better to just keep his mouth shut, right? But instead, he's still sporting a coat, and he's still talking about these dreams that he has, and they're making fun of him. Oh, peacock coat wearing, rainbow boy wearing your dreamer, little mama's boy, dreamer boy, and like brothers would. And so his father sends him out into the fields to find his brothers. And when he goes into the fields to find his brothers, they say, you know what? I hate that coat. Yeah, I don't know. Let's kill that. Let's kill him. Let's just kill him. And one of the brothers says, man, we probably shouldn't do that. There's always one in the crowd, right? We probably shouldn't do that. Let's just throw him in a pit and leave him. Then the other brother says, well, that probably wouldn't be right. Because the brother that was going to throw him in a pit, he was like, I'll throw him in a pit and then I'll come back and get him out because we probably shouldn't be killing our brother. And the other brother says, well, why don't we just sell him? Why shouldn't we just profit off of it? We'll take that stupid coat, we'll dip it and cover it in blood, and we'll take it back to Dad and say, hey, now, something bad must have happened. I don't know, And we probably heard that story, coat of many colors and that. And here's the thing, man, and it's important to understand too that the brother who said, let's sell this guy into slavery is Judah, okay? It's kind of important to the whole story. But this guy's name was Judah. And so they sell him to these guys that are passing by, and these guys that are passing by buy Joseph, and they take him into Egypt, right? Now, it's real hard because I'm thinking like these brothers are like, now we'll see who's bowing down to who, right? Because now you're sold into slavery and there ain't going to be none of this us bowing down to you. So he's sold into Egypt, into a house called Potiphar. And Potiphar's house, Potiphar was second in command in Egypt. He was the head of basically the army. And so Potiphar was a very strong, very powerful person. But as Joseph went into Potiphar's house, Potiphar started noticing that anything that Joseph was involved in, it worked. It became great again. It was like there was something happening with everything that he was involved in, like there was an outside force or somebody overseeing this that caused him to have success. And so as a wise person, because you don't get to Potiphar's position without having some kind of wisdom, as a wise person, we would naturally take the person who everything they do succeeds and put them in charge of more things. And as Joseph goes through, he is so blessed and he is so, Potiphar is so caught up in how awesome of job he's doing that he ends up making him the over his whole household. Now, the Bible says that Joseph was a really striking young lad. He's like a very good-looking kid. And, he's well-built and he's like got, muscles and 8-packs and 12-packs. And like he's cut, and he's tan and he's got locks. He's like, and Potiphar's wife's like, I don't know how to translate that. That's the Hebrew word for And so she's checking him out, and she's always making moves on him. Now, I know how he feels. That happens to me all the time. All the time. And Joseph, man, he's always like pushing her away, and it's one of those real awkward situations. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, it's, when they're just hitting you, all the time, and you're like, here we go again. I just feel like a piece of meat. You know what I'm talking about. So this is the way Joseph's going through this. Well, all of a sudden one day, man, it gets a little too close, and man, she makes a move, and she grabs his outer garment, his coat, his cloak, or whatever it is, and probably some kind of, fur jacket or something. I don't know, but she grabs it and starts screaming, and when the people come running in, says that Joseph tried to rape her. Well, Potiphar comes back, and Joseph, man, he's on the run. He's running, and when Potiphar comes back, she's like, tells Potiphar, and Potiphar isn't happy, and so he throws Joseph into jail. So the captain of the guard in the jail starts noticing that everything that he lets Joseph get around, touch, come in contact with, lead, head up, puts him over, responsible for, then there's this thing that's happening, and it's like some kind of outside force that's involved in everything that he does, and it becomes like not a natural way that everybody else is, but that this is kind of a different thing that's going on. And so he starts to put him in charge of more and more in the prison. Now, there comes a night in this prison where there was two guys, the cupbearer for the king, for Pharaoh, and the baker for Pharaoh. They had baked some bad bread and made some bad wine, obviously, because Pharaoh has them tossed into jail. Now, I've ate some bad cooking. No names mentioned, but I've ate some bad cooking. And I've never wanted to throw anybody in jail over it. So this must have been some really bad things. But anyway, so this cupbearer and this baker, they have these dreams. And in their dreams, they're real puzzled. And they go to Joseph and they say, here's these dreams we had. Can you tell us what they mean? And Joseph's like, well, I don't interpret dreams, but my God does. This thing, this outside force, it's my God. And so they keep hearing about his God, and they're like, man, this guy's crazy. He's talking to people that aren't there. It's like, But they have these dreams, and Joseph interprets these dreams, and one of them is like, oh yeah, you guys are fixing to get out of here, and one of you is going to be restored to his position, the cupbearer, but baker boy, your head's going to be on a pole outside the city. Like, you're both getting out. And sure enough, man, the exact thing that Joseph interprets happens. But Joseph says, but when you get out, don't forget why you got out. Don't forget me. Of course, like people do, they forgot. And so this guy's serving Pharaoh again, bringing him his wine or whatever, man. I mean, you got to be lazy to not even get out of the drink. Hey, my hand's empty. I don't know how it works, but for that to be somebody's job, I think the way it worked, though, was that the wine bearer, the cupbearer, had to, taste that to make sure it wasn't poison. So they probably had some backups, So Pharaoh has this dream. And this dream really messes him up, man. And you have to go read the story because it's really cool. This dream really messes him up, and he calls in all of his magicians and all these people, all of his whatever, like your 1-900, tell me my future people. Hey, man, tell me what's going on. Well, I see sky in your future. No, I mean, and all of a sudden, man, these people are like, I don't know what to tell you. And Pharaoh's just messed up. And then all of a sudden, the cupbearer's like, oh, wait. Forgot. There was this guy, Joseph, in the prison. He's still there probably because, nobody remembered to tell anybody. Somebody forgot. So he says he can interpret dreams. He interpreted my dreams. And remember the baker whose head's outside the city? Remember that guy? He told him what was going to happen to him too. So he brings them out. He brings Joseph out of prison. And Joseph interprets the dream for him. Now, in his dream, as Joseph interprets it, he tells Pharaoh, this is not me. I don't have this, but my God tells me what's going to happen. And here's the thing. There's going to be 7 years of absolute prosperity. Everything is going to grow and multiply, and it's going to be awesome. We're going to be living high on the hog. But then after that, there's going to be 7 years. And it's going to be bad. And it's going to be not just bad like, oh, yeah, we've been in a famine. Like, it's going to be bad. We're not going to have food. We're not going to have water. There's going to be people starving to death. And this thing is going to cover the world. Now, their world may have been, 100 miles, for what they knew. But this famine is covering the world. And so Pharaoh's like, wow, what should I do? And he's like, well, here's what you need to do. You need to take 1/5 of everything that we get in the years of prosperity. We need to build barns, and we need to store back, and we need to save back. And then when the 7 years of famine hit, we start to pull out of that. So Pharaoh says, wow, this sounds like a good job for you. And so he puts him in charge of this whole thing, right? So he finds himself in a position where he is the number 2, that only Pharaoh has more power and authority in all of the land of Egypt. Now, in history, Egypt ruled the world, right? You have a world history class. Egypt ruled the world. And Pharaoh was number 1, and Joseph was his number 2. He was mini-me. And so the good years go, and Joseph reads it, and it's just everything's working like it's supposed to. But then 7 years of bad times hit. Now, here's the problem, is that Israel, remember Jacob, Israel and his 11 sons now, because he has a new son to take the place of Joseph. So always remember, if you're the youngest kid, you can always be replaced. Just a little warning. No. Israel has a 12th son. Now these become the 12 tribes of Israel, right? Does that make sense? And so these are the 12 tribes of Israel that move on into the story as we go further into it. But at this time, he just has these 11 other sons, and he thinks he only has 11 because he thinks, of course, Joseph's dead. And so he calls his sons together, and he sends them into, the 10 of them, into Egypt to get food. Israel does. Jacob. And so they go in, and the person they have to see, wouldn't you know, would be who? Got to talk to Joseph. But they don't recognize him. But as soon as they come in, he recognizes them. He probably had on like some gold helmet and big, thing, like looking like, have you ever seen Ten Commandments? All the Egyptians walking, he's probably all dressed, duded up like that. And they didn't recognize him. They're talking to him through an interpreter. But he understands everything that they're saying. He knows exactly who they are. And Joseph, man, he's kind of a sissy boy. Because, he weeps a couple of times in this part of the story. He, has to take time. I got to go, guys. Bye. He's like, and so he goes off and he cries and he comes back. And so his brothers ask him, can we get some food? We're starving to death out here. And so they go through this whole thing of getting them food, and you have to read the story. It's too much to go into. There's a million things happen. But it turns out that they come back, and they have to bow down before him. Weird, huh? Everything just comes around. And so he goes through this whole thing, and he's like, no, I need you to go get my father. I need you to go get Israel. Go bring your father and come back. And so he tells them who he is, and they're freaking out because the guy we threw in a pit and we're going to kill now has all the food that we need to survive on. You understand the tension in the story. This is we don't get it because we'll just go to another store, right? But this is a big deal because there is no other store. There is no other place. Egypt is the only one that isn't starving to death. And the only way I can get what they have is through the very person that we jacked a long time ago. And so the story goes on, and they go get the father. Father comes back. Hey, Joseph's still alive. Yeah, party, yeah, good, and everything turns out. And so they are in Egypt, and man, they begin to multiply and prosper, and the family grows, and it becomes a nation there in Egypt. But I want to read one little part of this story because I think this is the part of the story where everything kind of comes to that boiling point, that climax, because there's that tension between these people wronged me, wanted to kill me, and now I hold their lives in my hand. And on the other side, it's this is our brother that we tried to kill and get rid of, and now we're bowing down before him, and he holds our lives in his hand. And from their perspective, man, this isn't looking good. You know what I'm saying? This is like tension. But here's his response to him, and this is in Genesis chapter 45, in verse 4. I'll start in verse 4. Genesis 45, 4. It says this: So Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, please." And they came near, and he said, "I am your brother Joseph." Man, can you imagine talking about, probably Reuben, pass out, I am your brother Joseph. And first it'd be like, no. Yeah. And so after they all woke up from passing out, I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. But man, I love Joseph here because he takes the tension right off. I don't know if I'm like that because I'd let it stew a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to get me some. I know it ain't right, but I'm going to get some anyway. He says, and now don't be distressed. That's an understatement. Don't be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. Get this, though. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are yet 5 more years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. Now I have to admit, even though this may be our story, that's probably not the twist mine would have had on it. You know what I'm saying? But is this not our story? We go through these cycles in our lives, and we find ourselves excited about life and want to tell everybody what we're doing. Man, this is great. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be a king of the world someday. And we get so excited. And then all of a sudden, man, our brothers come around and they throw us in a pit. Because here's the thing I found out about people is that nobody wants you to succeed. Anybody else notice that? So every time I get up, man, there's plenty of people there to bring me down. And so I go into Egypt. I go into a place that's unfamiliar, and it wasn't like what I thought it was going to be. And I find myself, man, like, okay, now here I am. Let's do something with this, because what was I thought would be is not going to be, but man, let's take this situation and let's roll with it. Man, and then there's always a woman. No, I'm just kidding. That wasn't where that was supposed to go. Then there's always that place you come to where, man, people wrongly accuse you, spread rumors about you, tell things about you. And what you're doing, you feel like you're coming alive, and all of a sudden, man, words are killing you. The accusations are flying, man, and it's destroying us, and we find ourselves imprisoned by the words of others. I'll never be anything. I'll never do anything. And we understand prisons. We understand the way this feels and the way it works. But then, man, we have this time where we're like, oh, wait, this isn't going to kill me. I can handle this. And we start to breathe again. We start to get back up again. We start to go, I can do this. And then out of nowhere, people come into our lives and they're like, man, I didn't expect you, but maybe you are the one that's going to help me out of this prison. And then circumstances that are far outside of us happen. And we find ourselves out of prison. And we're like, yeah, I'm finally living again. Finally living again. Been through this dark season. I'm finally living again. And then life starts going good. And then all of a sudden, man, your brothers show up. those ones who put you in the pit the first time. And now we have an opportunity in front of us, right? And we all have a decision. We all have a choice that we can make with what to do with this. Do I take and do I destroy these people who destroyed me at first? Or do I let bygones be bygones, and do I move forward in my life? And one thing I've found in my own personal life is that when I don't forgive, that where I was goes back to prison. But what Joseph does, man, is he's like, no, you didn't do this to me. God sent me here. And here's what I started noticing about this whole story, is that in this whole story, everything that is seen and unseen, every part that is in front of us, the things that's happening to us right here and right now, and the things that are going on far outside of our control or our reach, they seem to all be tied together to this one thing. See, I think you got to be older to get this perspective, because I don't think even 10 years ago I had this scope. I think you have to go through some things. I think you have to be in some pits and be in the right place, and then you have to be in the prison. I think you have to go through these ebbs and flows of life, these ups and downs, these slaves, these frees, these being the shining star of your dad's eye and then being the outcast of the family. I think we have to strut around in some rainbow-colored coats and then have them ripped up and bloody. I think we have to go through these things before we have the scope to see, wait, everything that's going on in my life, there's a huge chunk of it that I have absolutely no control over, but it all seems to be really related. And then I thought about in John, man, Jesus says this to his followers in John. He says, and he's talking about the coming of God's Spirit. And he says that when this happens, I will be in you, and you will be in me, and we will be in the Father. And I don't think that's like a new idea. I think from the beginning of the story, there was this universe that was working, and every part of this universe was related. And it was true for Joseph, and it was true for Israel, and it's true for you and I. And you know it's true because there are things in your life that you do not have control over. There are things in your life that have happened to you that if you could do anything to go back and change, you would change them. We've all been there. There are things that happen to kids that are horrible. They should never happen. But they do. And you're like, man, that's bad for you, but that doesn't affect me. Does it? Because see, there's something bigger than every one of us at work. And whether you believe in God or not is irrelevant. We all can look around and go, wait, there's outside forces here that I can't see or touch or feel. There are things going on here that I can't explain. There are things at work in my life. We say it all the time. I'm in prison. And I'm walking on clouds. I'm in heaven. I'm in hell. I'm this, I'm that. And we testify to these ideas that we're all connected and that there are things going on in the realm that we can't see that are affecting me and affecting you. And even though they may not be in the physical world, like we may not be experiencing a physical part, a physical pain, we understand that this thing is bigger than us. And so this becomes our story, this story of life. See, I think this whole story is just simply put, life. Wouldn't you agree? Like in every case, we're like, yay, Joseph, oh, Joseph, yay, Joseph, oh, Joseph, yay. I mean, and I start to say, man, that's my life. I'm up, I'm down, I'm in, I'm out, I don't understand. I'm like, God is real. There is no God. Do we go through that? I mean, if you've never said there is no God, you hadn't lived. People are like, I'm an atheist. I don't even believe there is a God. No, the thing is, if you don't ever go through that, I don't think you ever know if there's a God or not. There is a tension to living. There is more than us in this world. Because I guarantee you, if I had control over everything in my life, I would never have those pits and those prisons. Would you? I mean, I probably would have been like, yay, Potiphar's house, I'm there. Good enough, right? But there was another prison between Potiphar's house and second in charge. Here's the thing I get from Joseph, though. is that for Joseph, and this is the amazing part of the story for me, because this story starts at Joseph 17 years old. Man, we've all been 17. Like, I'm not sure I thought the way Joseph thinks. But from the pit to Potiphar's house to the prison to the throne. And I mean, you're talking about some major mountains and some deep valleys. Like, mine's probably more like this compared to that. But they feel like, doesn't it? I mean, let's be honest. We feel like everything is a mountain and everything is a valley. We don't feel the slight ebbs and flows. Now, I think the story takes everything to the extreme. Man, it's extremely high, extremely low, extremely high, extremely low, extremely high. But here's what got me with Joseph. He was never defined by his circumstance. You read this story, and I think about my own life, and I look at this place where it's like, yeah, I'm king of the world. That's my identity. And then it's like, I'm the scum of the world. And that's my identity. And it's like, I'm in charge of my own life. I'm free, no longer living under mom and dad. It's like, I'm in prisoner of the world. Everybody's out to get me. Nothing ever works out for me. And I think we live this life so self-consumed. First of all, we have a here in front of me perspective. We don't get that there's something bigger working, that we're all connected. And the second thing I don't think we get is that our circumstance does not define us. Now, every time I say that, you think I mean our bad, negative circumstance. But I want you to go with this today. I want you to remember this today. You're not as great as you think you are. But you're not as bad as you think you are. On the high highs, you're not the king of the world. It's not your identity. On the low lows, you're not the scum of the earth. It's not your identity. You haven't got the world by the tail and got everything figured out and God's gift to everything. You're not that. But you're also not stuck. You're not an alcoholic. You're not a loser. You're not broken. You're not at the end. Who we are in our identity is that we are part of God. You know what made Jesus Jesus? God lived in Jesus. Now, whether you believe in God or not, the universe lived in Jesus. The universe. That's hard to conceive, so we make it into a spirit and put it in there. But we're talking about all of life and all of mankind and everything that is and everything that has been and everything that will be dwelt in Jesus. And Jesus dwelt in that universe, understanding fully that his identity wasn't tied up into any particular circumstance, whether feeding 5 million or hanging on a cross. That's a pretty low. Like, I mean, I'd say that's a bad day. But it never defined who he was. Because he got that the universe dwelt in him and he dwelt in the universe. And that all of this was all connected. All of it is connected. I think that each one of us has within us God's power to change the world we live in. I believe that. I believe that there isn't a person in creation who doesn't walk around with the power inside them to change the world. But I think we get lost and we get defined by our circumstance and we don't figure out what's really going on. See, I don't think we get that the universe, God, Spirit, truth dwells in us. Like, a lot of us are sitting there, man, I don't have the capacity for the universe. I don't have the capacity for my own life. But then we also don't understand that we are in the universe. Jesus said, I will be in you and you in me and God in us and us in him. And that it's all interrelated. So my decisions and my choices in my life, it only matters when I think of my place in the universe. And when I think of my place in the universe, it doesn't matter if I'm on the high or the low. My place in the universe is to consider that my actions have reactions that go on forever. It's a rock thrown into a pool, and the waves and the ripples go outward. And see, in my circumstance, I may have been thrown in a pit, but what I don't see in the whole universe is that death is coming and there is a Savior that has been put into the ground, comes out. I mean, you get that when Joseph goes into the pit, it's not because his brothers are angry. It's because death is coming and the world needs saving. That is the universe. Is that death is coming and the world needs saving. And so Joseph spends his life, and I'm sure looking at his circumstance, he's like, what the heck is going on here? I don't get this. I don't get any of this. I'm up, I'm in a pit, I'm sold, I'm a slave, I'm up again, I'm in prison, I'm on the throne. I don't understand any of this. And then all of a sudden, man, it starts to come clear. Wait, this is not how I would have saved the world. But there was something bigger than me working in all of these situations. In Genesis chapter 50, when the story wraps up, the Genesis story wraps up, Joseph makes this statement, what? You intended for evil, God intended for good. Sometimes evil and the things that happen to us, even though we don't understand it, and I would never say this is the will of God. Evil is not the will of God. But when evil happens in this world, when bad things happen in this world, when cancer happens in this world, it is not just on us. There is a whole universe at work, and we don't see the big picture. Did the slave traders know what part of the story they were playing in saving the world? Or did they just buy a guy and sell him? I mean, if we really want to break it down, talk about the world changers, it was the guy who bought Joseph and took him to Egypt. Now, that was insignificant. Really? Because Egypt's where the world's going to get saved. How do we get there? I mean, I'm sitting there watching the Ten Commandments when I was a kid, and I'm like, this is great. How'd they get there? Aren't these the children of God? How did they get there? Man, you want to ask a trivia question in church? Ask somebody how the children of Israel got in Egypt. Coat of many colors? No, that's not going to be the answer you're going to get. Well, I don't know. The movie started, they were already there. Right? I mean, it's like, we've all seen the movie, they just start in Egypt. No, that's how the world got saved. See, we have to change the way we think. We have to see that what we do matters. You have within you a contributing role into changing this world. This is what I've been shown. I was told something this week. I've been in this funk for a long time. I'll tell you all about it all the time. And my perspective gets off because I've been, man, dude, I can tell you Joseph's story is my story. I've been high, then I've been in the pit because my brothers threw me there. And then I've been sold into slavery. And then I've risen up, and then people started talking and lying, and then I was in that prison. And the thing is, like at some point in our lives, a lot of times our circumstances, they just kick us down and we can't find it within us to get up. But I still had this sense that there is more, that this isn't over, like that there's more, you know, that God's doing something in the world that's big. The guy said this week, he said, we're all going to die. Everybody agree with that? That's not a theological thing, I mean. Like, we're one day closer to death. Now, I don't know what day that is for you or for me. I mean, if I knew, I might do something weird, you know, so it's better that I don't know, because you never know what you'll do in that situation. But we're all going to die. But this is what got me. What are you going to do today? We're all going to die, but what are you going to do today? See, I've just lost the perspective that I want to make every one of them count. What I do today matters. What you do today matters. I'll tell you this, what I do today matters to you. And what you do today matters to me. Because we're not in this alone. Joseph's story is a long story, and I know it just took some time to tell you, but you needed to know the whole story, because without knowing the whole story, we miss our role in the story. And maybe we miss the scope of the story. And maybe we miss that Jesus came to save the world, died, was buried, rose again. He came back to where he came from. He went back into the spiritual realm and returned to dwell within us. Because his world needed saving, and so does ours. And people are like, man, I can't wait till Jesus comes to save the world. He's in you. The responsibility falls to you. Do you get that? Like, it's not, man, I should be a fireman. I want to look like Scott. No, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you do, because you are a world saver. We exist. Everybody's like, well, I don't even know what I'm here for. You're here to save the world. Well, we don't even have any tracks, Todd. And if you don't know what tracts are, amen. Bless you. Pieces of paper don't save the world. Me caring about you saves the world. Me looking outside myself saves the world. Me caring for a hungry child saves the world. Me caring that my friends are addicts and they shouldn't be, that saves the world. Jesus called on his followers to save the world. But his followers got lazy. Oh, man, I'm glad I'm a Christian now. Can't wait on Jesus to save the world so I can get out of this hellhole. Is that not Christianity? Dude, it doesn't work. That theology sucks. That doesn't work. That's the opposite. The idea of getting saved and waiting for Jesus is against everything Jesus was about. People are like, Todd, you're a heretic. And I say, no, man, you are. I believe this is real. And I believe it isn't over. You know why? Because I can do this. And when you can breathe, you have a responsibility to save the world. Well, I really don't want to miss church. God, get over it. Get over it. Love on a baby. Change a neighbor's tire. Pick somebody. Do something useful in changing the world. Man, that was good world-changing talk this morning in church. This is what drives me crazy about these elections and about these politicians. All they do is talk. All the church does is talk. All activists do is talk and cause traffic jams. If you believe it enough, then go do something about it. Don't pick it till somebody else does. See, the thing is, we'd rather just sit around and gripe and word bash because that takes the responsibility off of me. I did my part, man. I didn't buy another thing from Walmart, that pig corporation. What? Yeah. How about we actually get up and do something? How about we love our neighbor as ourselves? How about we forgive? See, that makes you freakish. You'll be a freak. You start forgiving people who do you wrong, letting it go, not exercising your right to say something. Then what? You're a freak. You're a freak. Well, Todd, I would, but I want to, you're called to the ministry. And if I was in the ministry where I could just sit around all day and talk about God, man, that'd be great. But I have a job. Quit your job. If that's your excuse, quit your job and do something. The thing is, your job is the place you're supposed to be changing the world. Your job is not who you are. It's not who you are. You are not your circumstances, whether good or bad. You are not your circumstances. It's bigger than you. It's us. Well, Todd, what programs do we have? We have this program called Save the World. It's like when you see somebody drowning, don't call the church and go, man, I saw a guy drowning. I think we should start a program for drowning people. How about throw them a lifeline? That's the program. When your friend is drowning, pull them out of the water, put air back in their body. Don't call the church and say, we need a program for that. I see a lot of drowning people. When I tell you that, you think, man, yeah, that'd be stupid to do that. But then we go out there and like, man, our church really don't have many programs. I think I'm going to go try another church. And then it's like, man, I had this really good idea for ministry, Todd. We should do this. Like, we? I know what that means. We had a garage sale a few weeks ago. I know what we means. Don't tell me we need to do something because I know exactly what that means. If we needed to do it, one of us would have already been doing it, and then we could have joined in. When you tell me we need to do something, you're saying that I need to do it, and I don't need anybody else telling me any more things to do. I'm trying to save the world. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's a whole world that needs saving, man. And it'd be great if more than a few got on board with that. Can we do this? Can you leave here today and can you make a difference? Can you give someone a kind look, a kind word? Can you encourage the bad service at your restaurant? Can you? Maybe, just maybe, we got bad service because they're in prison because of the word somebody's saying to them. You going to be Potiphar's wife? Or are you going to save the world? Are you going to put people in pits or pull people out of pits? See, that's not my responsibility. I need to talk to your manager, please. What? Man, I have a hard time because my wife says I talk very sarcastically. So sometimes when I'm encouraging, it doesn't sound like it. This service is so horrible, you must be having a bad day. Don't say that. You can just say, I know that's what you're thinking, but you don't say that. Because we have to learn to be nice too. See, that's the other part of Christianity. It's like, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to kick you in the teeth with it. Well, that's no good either, man. People generally don't like that. But I can say, man, this service sucks. Are you having a bad day? Is there anything I could do to cheer you up or make your day better? My mom has this unbelievable ability for people to dump on her. She'll be walking through Walmart, man, a complete stranger walk straight up and tell them her whole life story with all the details. I mean, I've seen this since I was a kid. I'm no more things about people just standing close to my mom. I'm like, who in the world was that? No idea. Never seen them before, never met them before. It's got one of those faces that people love to just dump on. But she always smiles, is nice to them. Because if you don't have any answers, at least you can be nice. You know what I'm saying? But man, it's God, shut up, crazy person. I got things to do. And then you leave and you're like, God, this whole world's crazy. And then you sinks in and you're like, no, wait, this whole world's crazy. And you're like, maybe somebody should do something about it. I'll call Todd. We can get a program. And I'll say, great, Scott, got a new program idea for you. All right, here's the way it goes. We got a project for the youth. If you got any crappy jobs, it's always called the youth pastor. Hey, I've got a project for the youth. Somebody needs to go clean up the stuff in the streets in this town, man, and mow some yards and fix some things because it's getting pretty run down. Scott, I got something for the youth that would be great. You know what I'm saying? We laugh about this, but this is the truth. This is what happens. We go to church and we come up with programs and great ideas. We get politically involved in politics and picketing and And nobody ends up doing anything. That there just starts to be more noise and more noise and more noise and more noise, and nobody does anything. And then this is what happens, and you've probably been on this end. Somebody says, man, I'm tired of talking about it. I'm going to do it. And the minute you do it, everybody's like, I can't believe them. They're trying to do that, and they should do it this way and this way. Just, if you're not going to do anything, at least shut up. You know, don't complain about the people who are. You know, at least they're doing something. There's a lot of life lessons in here. I was supposed to end 30 minutes ago. But I get sick of church. Do you get just sick of church? Yeah, we went here, talked about this, and did nothing. Man, Todd, I came to your church 5 years ago. I was addicted. Yeah, how's it going? Oh, I'm an addict. Thanks for the encouragement, brother. It's awesome to hear your story. Not that I've wasted the last 5 years doing nothing. Let's do something. And then all you guys that are list makers and schedulers, you're like, okay, what do we do? Well, you got to have somebody to tell you. All right, I'm going to set you guys free right now. I'm going to tell you. You got your notepad out, your little schedules, whatever. When you see some need, do something about it. Number one. Number two, repeat. All right, okay? Now make your schedules and your list, and everything will be cool. All right, let's do this. Stand up with me. I'm going to release you to save the world. I tell you this though, the world never got saved in church. You know where the world got saved, right? Egypt. You know where Egypt's at, right? It's outside here.